This is reddogterrain. Welcome back to the shed. Today we're building a really big sci-fi backdrop. After finishing my Big Bot Bash challenge from build making stuff, I went to make the glamour shots. And as I did, I used the black backdrop that I normally do, just an old sheet that hangs up, and it just didn't have the same pop. It didn't look good. So I decided then that I was going to make a new backdrop for all my sci-fi stuff. It would also give me an opportunity to use the ridiculous amount of bits that I've been collecting over the last couple of years. This thing probably wouldn't be very useful as terrain, or maybe not even being playable on. It's more of just a corner piece so that when I shoot a picture of something or do a little quick video, the background just looks cool. I didn't have too much of a plan. I wanted the back to be really cluttered and full of bits, but I definitely wanted the bottom to be very flat. That way I could put something on it and it didn't fall over or lean in an odd way. But I did want to make the ground look kind of interesting. So I figured I would just cut out a few squares and put some green resin, like some kind of toxic goo, and a mesh on top. Whatever I was shooting or filming could just sit over it, and it wouldn't interfere with its stability, but still have a little bit of interest to it. The bottom and the back are made with just cheap dollar store foam board, but I quickly realized that it wasn't very stable and kind of wobbled a lot, so I cut down some strips of leftover lumber that I had. I think this is balsa, and just reinforced it and just glued it onto the corners and put a strip down the back eventually too. You notice here there's a big jump in the build process. It kind of went from a few flat pieces to a big old corner piece. That's because this part was really hard to film. I didn't really know what I was doing as far as building it, and I got kind of frustrated and just didn't film parts of it. And then also other parts, you couldn't really see what I was doing anyways because I was standing in front of the camera, or the backdrop was blocking it. So just know that I built this. After covering everything in the secret sauce, which is of course just black paint and Mod Podge, I sprayed everything with a plain old gray. The inside of every space station or spacecraft or sci-fi terrain block or whatever has to have pipes, so I put in a bunch of pipes, and these are just simple PVC fittings with a little bit of cardboard to cover them up, some cardboard tubes. Made sure to use super glue and baking soda to really lock them in and fill in some of the gaps. A friend of a friend has been collecting the piece for me from all the juice packets that they get for their daughter, and I wanted to use up a few, and I thought this would use up a whole bunch, and turns out it only used up like a dozen. A few months ago, we went to Dallas for my birthday, and we met up with some of my wife's friends, and they brought us to the mall, which had this neat little shop full of cheap Japanese, Chinese, Asian trinkets and toys and plushies and candies and stuff. And I picked up one of these water guns. I picked up a couple of them actually, knowing that they would make great pieces. I put it on top of a Tropicana juice lid, painted black, put a little bit of gray and dry brushing on it, and it looks like a cool water tank feature thing. In an attempt to use up a few more of the piece, I made this little rectangle of foam and started gluing them in, but you can see that it doesn't really hold well until I got the genius of idea of laying the whole piece down on its side, and therefore they stayed instead of falling because of gravity. At this point, the next 3 minutes of the video and like 2 weeks of my life was just me going into the shed, cutting up some pieces, seeing if they fit, figuring out where I could fit them or slot them in, and turning them and trying to make them not look like a Nerf gun or a Megatron's head or whatever it was. and with no real plan at all or idea what I was doing, knowing that once I sprayed the whole thing with gray and put a big black wash all over it and did a few little highlights here and there, it would all eventually come together. I also knew that this was just a backdrop. Most of the time that it would be filmed, it would actually be out of focus because I would be focused on the thing that's in front, the monster or the robot that I built. So therefore, if it wasn't perfect or if it looked a little goofy or things shouldn't go the way that they were stuck on there, it probably didn't really matter too much. All of this is stuck down with plain old Eileen's tacky glue, and then strategic spots of super glue just so that they all stick to each other. Maybe not the best strategy because it means if one piece falls off, it might just take the whole thing down with it, but so far it's holding up. It's been like a week since I finished and nothing's fallen. So as I literally glue trash to foam, I'm going to ask you to like and subscribe, tell a friend, comment on the video. I like the comments the best. Thanks. Interstellar Assembly Union Worker number 10008, reporting for duty. The small screen above the voice recognition screen lit up. The word said, "Welcome Interstellar Assembly Worker number 10008. Please place your thumb on the reader and look directly into the scanner." I did as the screen asked. I did as I have done for the last 17 years. After a few approving beeps, the printer spat out a long, thin stretch of paper listing all the parts I needed to mount to the surface, a checklist of today's work. My worker assistants and new knowledge machine downloaded the plans. It showed the orientation of every object I needed to weld. It showed its size and its location. I picked up the first piece, attached my harness and climbing gear, and began assembling. The same thing every day. 16 hours a day for the last 17 years. Alright, back to the build. At this point, all the little bits are attached. Spray painting everything with that same gray from previously. It really starts to come together at this point, and you're like, oh, it doesn't just look like trash, it kind of looks like something. Then I put I made a big batch of black wash. I never had to make this much wash in my life, and also had to run out, or did run out. Covered the whole thing in black wash, made it look grimy. It was great. With the walls done and looking so grimy, I needed to go back to the floor. So I used some oil wash and hit the little spots where I'd made the little nail holes and something like rivets, and highlighted the different creases and panel lines. As always, I want to thank the band Aya for the use of their music in all of my videos. This song is Cernunnos, which is off their 5th album called Ominous. After attaching some wires and this big crinkly hose, it was time to make some resin. Small little batch with some green ink to put into those spaces that I cut way back at the beginning of the video. I put in the mesh over the green slime or ooze, and with that the build is done. I'm going to let the music play as we go to the glamour shots. Thanks for watching.